Hello, everyone. Welcome to Yalom. I just have to share with you all just a story of vulnerability. My story is I felt super good about it, voiceover PowerPoint already this morning on Yalom. And then I discovered my headphones were not plugged in. So, good times. So anyway, I just wanted to share with you because yeah, I think we're all human and it's really the Mondayest Monday that ever Mondayed so far. But actually I can laugh about it now. So I'm okay. It's going to be even better than the first one, right? That's my goal. So, what I'm here today to talk about is Dr. Irvin Yalom, who many people regard as sort of the grandfather of group counseling or group therapy. Yalom really, he's actually still alive. He's still writing. He's quite amazing. Um, and he really these factors he noticed came from his work. So this kind of theory that's really derived from the work was kind of ahead of its time in many ways, but these are the themes and the things that he saw in his work doing group therapy, the things that he really believed in a nutshell made group therapy as great and amazing and transformative as he believes it is. So that's Yalam. The first thing that he talked about is the installation of hope. And the installation of hope is, you know, just a fundamental sort of strength based, really foundational underpinning piece around any kind of therapeutic work that's really deep and transformative, actually. Um, but I'm just going to give a story about the installation of hope. So this story, I first heard this story, a version of this story from Dr. Bruce Perry, who I love all his work. Um, but there was a psychologist in the 1950s, his name was Carl Richter, who started to do some studies around rats. I know some of these are a little horrible for our very sensitive, ears these days. But and actually rats are amazingly smart. But anyway, I won't get into the ethics of the studies. But what he did was he took like a large sort of cylindrical tube and put water in it and put a rat in it so that the rat, there was no way the sides were too straight up and down and there was no way the rat could escape. And what would happen is if he would just let the rat swim until it drowned, rats could swim about 15 minutes before they drown. And what he decided to do was just at the last minute when rats were, at their final stages of giving up and stopping swimming around that 15-minute mark, he would take the rat out and he would actually give it some time to recover and recuperate. And then he would put the rat back in. And what do you think would happen when he would put the rat back into the water? How long would that rat, who previously was swimming for 15 minutes, swim for now? So I'd like you to take a minute and think about that. And I'd like you to actually get a piece of paper and I'd like you to write your thoughts down and give me what you think, how long that rat would swim for. And I'm like, I feel like I could really play some, despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. But I don't want to play, I don't want to get shut down on YouTube again. But that would be my musical choice, all right? So, by the way, saw them in concert, Smashing Pumpkins. It was actually a horrible concert. Worst concert I've ever been to. But anyway, great song. You could play, yeah, okay. I'm not going to go any longer on music. But So you might think, okay, like the rat's not going to be able to swim as long now. Or maybe you think, you know what, that rat like has maybe learned something and maybe they'll swim a little longer. I'm willing to bet that none of you guessed, maybe you're wrong, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm willing to guess none of you guessed that that rat would actually now, instead of swimming for 15 minutes, be capable of swimming for 60 hours, 2.5 days. And that is astounding. Um, so if you leave a rat to drown, but at the last moment you take it out of the water and you put it back in, the rat is capable of sustaining that swimming for 240 times longer than they were previous. And that, my friends, is rat hope. The rat realizes that the first time when they were just about at their absolute wit's end, kind of anthropomorphizing a little bit here, I know, a little Disney-ish, but a hand reached down from above, and there they were saved. And now that rat can swim so much longer because it's waiting and hoping that someone will come and save it again. And that is so powerful. If you can do nothing else in this work, then spread some hope. That is amazing. And that is what Yalom said he was able to see in the through the process of him being involved with and running groups. So that's pretty cool. Don't worry, they won't all be this long. That was my best story. Universality. So universality is the idea that we're not in this alone, that other people have also experienced the things that we've experienced. That can be incredibly empowering. And for people, especially people who internalize problems, for them to realize, hey, this isn't even about me. So I'm just going to give an example of that. When I've been involved in groups for little kids, when parents get divorced or separated, the number one thing that comes up is kids believe it's their fault and that they somehow did this. And so when kids can look around the room and see other kids that this has happened to, they have this sense that I'm not alone. And it really helps them when we say to them, it's not your kid, it's not kids' fault when mom and dad separate or divorce, or when, you know, the people in your life separate and divorce. That can be so validating, because kids are able to say, yeah, it mustn't just be me, because look at this happens to other kids as well. So universality. Imparting of information. Sometimes we just needed to understand and know what was happening, and it started to make so much sense to us. And groups, especially educational groups, have that piece where sometimes just being educated on what's happening can be so empowering and really help you make connections and linkages to your own experience. Altruism. Altruism, is just this concept that when we do good things for other people, there's some inherent impact on our own well-being, and we do get a sense of fulfillment and enjoyment, and that feeling of altruism is a really huge and healing component many times of groups. If I've walked through something and I'm feeling like I have some wisdom to share with other people on the other end, it helps kind of create some purpose for my own experience of suffering. And I feel good about being able to help other people. The corrective recapitulation of the primary family group. So this is really about many of us in our family of origins, which often is referred to as FOO, F-O-O. Many of us in our family of origins have unresolved issues or things that did not get addressed or needs that were not met, which, in the sort of back doors of social work, and I think you've already determined that there's sometimes some sort of dark humor that goes along with it. What we often refer to as quote unquote foo shit, right? So family of origin stuff that we're carrying with us. And sometimes, for various reasons, it's not feasible, realistic, attainable for us to actually be able to have new and transformative experiences with our family of origin. But we can sometimes utilize the group experience, especially a group therapy kind of experience, to kind of rework and have new sort of reparative and healing experiences in that group that can kind of move us forward in terms of reworking some of those unresolved or unfinished business things. We can develop socializing techniques. We can learn skills. Maybe we've never learned how to assert ourselves in our foo, and we are unsure about what it looks like and what's a healthy way to assert yourself and have boundaries. We can practice and develop and utilize skills in the small group and therapeutic group experience that can help us in life. Imitative behavior. So, the example that I'm going to give here is our community at Medicinet Family Services runs a group called the Courage to Change group. And the Courage to Change group is for men who have been convicted of domestic violence, domestic assault. And the group is facilitated by one male facilitator and one female facilitator. And that is intentional. It's intentional because part of what happens in the group is about the content, but a lot of what happens in the group is about the process. So the content of a group is sort of, what you see in front of you. What is the content? Who does what are the slides we're showing? But the process is, how do we share that information? What are the factors? And for many men, especially men who've grown up in domestic violence situations in their own homes, they have not had a chance to actually see what healthy, respectful communication looks like between an adult man and an adult woman. And so now here is a chance for them to witness it, experience it, and hopefully imitate it in a way that could be very transformative for themselves and for their relationships. Catharsis. Catharsis is just this idea that we can experience a release. We can experience healing through venting, through being heard, from this emotional release of being in the group. And so catharsis is really about the sort of emotive experience that one can have in group counseling or group therapy. Existential factors. Existential factors links to me, well, to all of these things, but really in particular to the installation of Hope Point. But I've talked a little bit about this, I know, in Social Work 100, but if you haven't, I would highly recommend reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And Man's Search for Meaning is about the idea that even in the darkest times, this is a little Dumbledore, there is always hope. But really, it's about trying to find purpose in our suffering and looking outside of ourselves for something bigger and greater than. And that could be religious or spiritual, but it might not be. It can be many different factors. And I think that actually it's one of the key tenets of AA is the idea that this idea that you will relinquish your power to a higher being, something that is out there is greater than you. And so, yeah, that's the idea of sort of the existential factors. And I was just trying to Google as I talk, which I probably shouldn't do because I'm just trying to think, what is that called? I watched that series on Netflix. Euphoria. Is that right? Yes. And sorry, I should just pause for a minute, but I'm gonna keep struggling. There's a episode in it where there's a meeting between this young woman. You don't need to watch the whole thing at all in order for it to make sense to you, but where there's a meeting between a young woman and essentially her sponsor, her mentor, in a cafe, and it's beautiful. It's just really, really well done, in that it sort of plays out like the struggles that we're talking about, like how to submit, I guess, your beliefs into a higher power, and many of the sort of aspects around existentialism related to, in this case, particularly addiction. So anyway, it's a really good episode, stands alone on its own if you want to catch that. Sorry. Anyway, it's a really good episode, stands alone on its own without watching the rest of it if you don't want to. But anyway, it's Euphoria on Netflix, season 1, I think. Group cohesiveness. So group cohesiveness is, yeah, just the sense that many of us have experienced before. If you've been part of a team, or you've been part of a choir, or you were in a play, or something that connected you to other people, that you felt a strong sense of satisfaction in that connection. And so, yeah, there's just something about belonging and feeling like you're a part of something that can be so incredibly life affirming. And that's what Yalom is talking about in terms of group cohesiveness. Interpersonal learning, this is when one person has some kind of an experience and they maybe share that with the group, and maybe that hasn't happened to me, but I was able to learn and benefit from that. So the kind of learning that can happen between individuals in a group experience is just quite beautiful, actually. The group is a social microcosm. This is a little bit like the recapitulation of the family experience, but a little different. But it's sort of this idea that, in this little group, we can kind of have our own little environment that we can try things out in, that we can bounce ideas off of people. And so we become this little social microcosm, sort of separate from the world. And it's a safe place for us to try things out and connect with each other. So this is Yalom's sort of factors that he feels really pinpointed what is unique and special and specifically therapeutic and healing in group counseling, group format work. So those are incredible contributions that he has made to, primarily the fields of social work and psychology around this kind of just really special kind of work, and how it might be a little bit similar than individual formats, but also what sets it apart. Thank you.